the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to another edition of the Volpe Report. I'm your host, Dominic Volpe. With us tonight, we have another special guest. We have Tom DeChiaro here, owner of the winery here in Yorktown. Tom, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Dominic.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, let's get started. We're going to go right into this tonight. All right, so let's start with, I guess, the history of the place is called the Old Stone Church. So what is the history of the Old Stone Church? Give us a little background.
The church was built in 1911 and 1912 by a woman named Amy Lafarge Hines. She built it as a dedication to her husband, George Hines, who was actually a famous architect. He did a few of the IRT subway stations in Manhattan, and he also was the first architectural firm to work on St. John the Divine in Manhattan, which is that large, huge church that's still not finished.
Right.
After the church was built, and during that period of time, she donated the building to the Archdiocese of New York, and it was called St. George's Chapel for that time. In the 60s, the Catholic Church beatified Elizabeth Ann Seton, and she is the first American saint, American-born, Native American-born.
Right.
And so the Vatican wanted a church in the United States named after her. So they named the church Blessed Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish. In 1975, when she was officially canonized a saint, they changed the name of the church to St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Then in that time, in the early 80s, they outgrew the church, and the parish moved to its current location in Shrub Oak.
Which is like right across the street from the Shrub Oak Shopping Center.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Monsignor Sandy's a pastor. Nice guy.
Yes. So that was the history of the church going way back then, in a sense.
Correct.
All right, now, is the church considered a landmark in the sense that does it have that historical status of being a landmark?
It's not officially designated a landmark by the town. There was a little bit of controversy that surrounded that. I felt that the landmark laws as they were written were pretty obtrusive, so it would be very difficult to do anything with the building.
Right.
I have, though, restored the building pretty much to its original look and feel.
It looks exceptional. You've done a great job there.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, I mean, was the renovation only inside, outside? Did you try to keep the character of the church, pristine in a sense, or did you try to make any renovations other than that, or
well, let me take you back a little bit to the first question.
Sure.
Once the church sold the building in 1982, I believe, to a Mr. and Mrs. Nathan, the building sat vacant for approximately 20 years. It was then purchased by a gentleman named Mr. Palmiero, who recently passed away. He started the renovations back in 2000. I purchased the building in 2005.
What was his goal? What was he trying to do?
His goal was to create a restaurant there.
Okay.
And initially had overwhelming support by the town. I'm not quite sure, but there was a lot of controversy that happened afterwards, and then he lost support.
Right.
I came in and bought the building in 2005 with a more innovative idea on trying to, keep the building intact, but at the same time put some sort of a business in there that wouldn't be as, demanding as a restaurant would be.
Right.
That's where we came up with the winery idea.
I see. And so therefore it's called the Winery at St. George because the chapel itself was called as you were just mentioning before, it was called the St. George Chapel, or
that's correct,
right?
Yeah.
So that's how they came about.
So St. George is the saint who, slayed a dragon. You see him with a spear.
Oh, gotcha.
And so we wanted to keep the integrity of the building. As a matter of fact, the logo that we use for the winery is the exact image that was on the steeple of that church.
So not only is it you're trying to keep the character of the church up, but you're also, seems like almost like in a historical nature, you're really trying to keep things as it was when the church was built 200 years ago, whatever it was.
About 100 years
100 years ago. So it seems like there's an attempt on your side to really keep things as is. You're not trying to change this into like a modern thing or something.
No, I mean, you've been inside, so you had an opportunity to see it, and many of the people who have seen it understand what we were trying to accomplish with the building. So if you look, the entire roof and the ceiling on the inside and the outside is exactly the same as it was when it was first constructed.
Sure.
We've used the same chandeliers. We've even incorporated into the tasting bar the original pews for the church.
Oh, no kidding.
So we've incorporated as much of the original material as possible in the building.
So it's almost like a green building in a sense. You really didn't have to take too much out. You try to keep as much on site as is.
We did. It took a lot of work and a lot of energy because of how long it was vacant. There were a lot of problems.
How long did the renovations take?
They took me approximately 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Can you give me a number more or less, or would you rather keep that quiet?
It was in excess of $1 million.
It was excessive. Yeah. So you've outlaid a lot of money on your own side as far as to get this up and running.
That's correct.
Sense. Okay. All right. Now, so let's go to another question. So do nearby residents and businesses support your attempt at opening up the winery? Tell me what kind of support you've gotten.
Well, from the many emails we receive from people who've seen the building, from people I've spoke to in the neighborhood, we have overwhelming support for the business for several reasons. I mean, not to mention one, it's a very upscale type of an environment,
right,
and it's something to do for adults.
Right.
Two, they get to see this beautiful structure and participate in being inside. Three, we're going to create some jobs and generate some tax revenue. And quite frankly, that building is the gateway into Mohegan Lake. Sure. And that whole strip of Route 6 is all businesses.
Right.
So, yes, it's a good thing because not only will people frequent the winery when we're open, but they'll frequent the other businesses that are there as well.
Sure, you're almost like an anchor to where you begin at Mohegan Lake in a sense, and that end right at the line there. So it does kind of, you are almost an anchor to that whole strip in a sense. And the fact that you, excuse me, the fact that you went to the detail inside, and when you were talking about that, because if anybody has ever seen or been inside, it's amazing. You walk in and it's almost like you're coming back into this medieval castle almost to a degree. It's got the iron and the stone and the wood replenished back. You've got a piano bar there and you've got a piano. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's really nice. So you've gone over and above than anything. It's not, let's put it this way. It's not a sports bar.
No,
that's clear.
No, there's no TVs in the place.
Right.
We're not really intending to be anything more than all about wine and the culture of wine, mm-hmm, and the making and processing of wine.
So speaking of wine, how did you get involved with the wine? Are you a wine connoisseur? Where did this idea come up with? Have you got, what's your history as far as that goes in the wine business? Well,
Dominic, you could understand, being Italian, that wine is a very important part of our culture. And so we were involved in homemade winemaking since I was young. I was fortunate enough earlier in my career to work out in California. And I lived in Sausalito, California, which is about maybe 45 minutes away from Napa. And
Sure.
So while I was there, I really honed my skills and became more passionate than I was when I was younger.
Sure.
And so it was always my goal to do something in the wine industry when I had the means to be able to make that happen.
Right, as compared to just opening up a wine, like a liquor store or a wine store. You wanted to go one notch higher.
Yeah, we wanted to be able to make wine and also share in wine appreciation. You know, as you know, there are many varieties of wine from different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate enough to travel to many of these countries and meet with winemakers because, you know, just talking to them is so incredible.
And so your main influence has been out of California, the Napa Valley, anywhere else that you've been?
Well, I've traveled to France, I've traveled to Italy. I was recently in South Africa. And I will tell you, the wines coming out of South Africa are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, well, is that the one, the Shiraz, I think, is what they're known
That's
for?
Australia.
Oh, sorry.
Shiraz is Australia. You can talk to Marco.
Yeah, I think so.
They have an indigenous grape in South Africa called the Pinotage grape, and it produces a very earthy, deep wine, full-bodied, high alcohol content. And you know, it's a very interesting taste for someone who's never tasted it before, but it really is a very well-balanced wine. But you have to eat, you know, some heavy cheeses with it.
Gotcha.
And, you know, it's an enjoyable thing.
I'll give you one that I'm comfortable with because I'm pretty sure of this. In Italy, there's the Naples and Sorrento area, mm-hmm, which is right off where Vesuvius was the dormant volcano. Well, the one wine that's very like natural to the area is called Lacrima de Christi, which means the tears of Christ. And the reason why they do that is because I guess the acidity level from the volcano